Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. My name is Katrina, and I'll be your moderator today. Je serai votre modératrice aujourd'hui. Thank you for joining us today for today's media availability on the trial running of trains line 2 and 4. Merci de nous joindre à nous aujourd'hui pour cette point de presse sur la période de rodage pour les lignes 2 et 4 de l'O-Train. Our media availability is available in either French or English. If you would like audio interpretation, click the interpretation globe icon in the bottom menu, then select your preferred language. You can ask your question in the language of your choice. And a reminder that this meeting is being recorded. Ce point de presse est disponible en français ou en anglais. Si vous souhaitiez bénéficier d'une interprétation audio, cliquez sur l'icône de globe d'interprétation dans le menu du bas, puis sélectionnez la langue de votre choix. Vous pouvez aussi demander vos questions dans la langue de votre choix, et cette réunion est enregistrée. Our media availability today will include opening remarks from René Amicard, General Manager of Transit Services, and Richard Holder, Director of the Rail Construction Program. Le point de presse aujourd'hui comprendra des remarques préliminaires de René Amicard, Directrice Générale, Service de transport en commun, et de Richard Holder, Directeur Programme de construction de TLR. I'll pass things over to René now. Je vais maintenant passer la parole à René.
Merci beaucoup, Katrina. Bon après-midi.
Thank you, Catherine. Good afternoon, everyone. Always happy to be here with you.
Thank you for joining us today. Once again, I'm here with Richard Holder, Director of the Rail Construction Program, to discuss the latest trial running results. Yesterday, Transit Next achieved a daily on-time performance score of 98.6%. Before I hand the floor over to Richard to give an overview of yesterday's result, I would like to remind everyone of the importance of the trial running phase. We are taking this one day at a time. We now have 10 days of trial running under our belt. As I have said before, trial running is Transit Next's final test. While we have been pleased with the results to date, I'm also pleased with both Transit Next and OC Transpo's ability to overcome challenges during trial running. Operating a rail system is complex and requires every moving part to seamlessly work together. While it is important that issues do not occur, how we respond to them is equally as important. Both Transit Next and OC Transpo remain focused on our collective goal in addressing issues now to ensure we can quickly respond to operational challenges in the future. I cannot stress enough how important this phase of the project is. Every time we overcome an issue during trial running, it gets us one step closer to delivering a system that will meet our expectations on day one. Maintenant, je vais demander à Richard.
I'd now like to ask Richard to give you an overview of yesterday's results. Over to you, Richard.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today's report will cover the trial running performance for Wednesday, October the 16th. So as René has already indicated, yesterday's Transit Next on-time performance was 98.6%. This brings the 14-day rolling average to 99.5% and means there are a minimum of 4 days left to achieve the target of 98.5% over a 14-day rolling average. Yesterday, we saw different issues that impacted the system performance. The first type of issue was track-related, specifically with one of the switches located near Mooney Space Station. The switch was unable to move to the correct position as the train approached the switch, and so the system was paused. The rail controllers in the Transit Operations Control Center were able to resolve this issue by remotely moving this switch to the correct position. Transit Next is currently investigating this particular switch to determine why it went out of correspondence and to determine what adjustments need to be made. The second type of issue was vehicle related. A train that arrived at Bayview Station went into safe mode as a speed sensor was indicating a fault. This caused some delays until the issue was resolved by a vehicle technician at the site. Transit Next has investigated this particular train issue and has determined that a faulty connection was a root cause. These types of issues are normal with a system that is undergoing testing and commissioning, and even when we go into operations. We are still continuing to grow the reliability of the system. And with every time that we deal with one of these issues, we have further confidence that that issue will not occur again during operations. Thank you, and I will now hand it over to Katrina for your questions.
Thank you, Richard. I'll invite each agency in alphabetical order to ask their questions. Je vais maintenant inviter chaque organisme de presse par ordre alphabétique à poser des questions. We'll start with, nous allons commencer par, I see that CBC is here, but I don't see a name, so please let me know if you'd like to ask a question. Okay, we'll move on. Ted Raymond at CTV.
Hi there, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. My first question is for Mr. Holder. I'm hoping to get a little bit more on the switch issue that was highlighted here. If you could describe a little bit about the area of the track. Is this like the single track section that needs to be switched to allow trains to pass, or is this a different kind of issue with these switches, and how is it normally supposed to work?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So we call it the Brookfield Siding North switch. So this is a section where we have two tracks, and this allows the vehicles heading north and the vehicles heading south to pass each other. So the switches at either end of this particular passing track, this siding, they are switching regularly. Every time we have a vehicle exchange there, the switches are moving from tangent position to turnout position. And so, we've had, many days with no issues with the switches. Exactly why this particular switch went out of correspondence at this time, we don't know. The maintenance team, it will be doing a full investigation. They did an investigation last night. They will be doing more this evening to determine exactly what is the root cause of the issue. It was an issue that was occurred as a singular event. Once the intervention by the Transit Operations Center was successful, we did not have a reoccurrence. So that switch has gone through dozens of movements since the issue occurred yesterday. But we want to investigate and make sure that everything involved in the setup of the switch is functioning properly.
Okay, thank you. And my follow-up question will be for Madame Amilcar with regard to how this would unfold in revenue service. So let's say something like this does happen where a switch doesn't happen, there are passengers on the train and the system has to be stopped. What happens on OC Transpo's end, or what are passengers to expect if something like this would happen? What kind of a delay are we looking at here?
Thank you very much for the question. So as my colleague Richard just said, we have been able to remotely switch the switch, which was fantastic. So that means we didn't need to wait for a technician, etc. So in a real life, for sure, if it's with a question of minutes, we would probably just stop the train and wait for that. And after that, the second thing that we would have done probably we would communicate with our passengers to let them know that we have a problem and we're working on it, so they are safe, just to assure them. And as usual, when something like that arrives, we will investigate the day during the night, right after, the day after, to avoid any repetition.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ted. And we'll move on to Blair Crawford at the Ottawa Citizen.
Hi there. I guess this is for Mr. Holder. We know that there's single track sections on the Trillium line, but can you better explain? Is it just like one section that's single track, or does it are there several sections, and whereabouts those switches are along that line?
Okay, certainly. I'm happy to answer that question. So in operations, we have at least 3 vehicles heading in the north direction and 3 or 4 vehicles heading in the south direction. So whenever those vehicles need to pass by each other, that passing movement takes place at a section of double track. There are certain situations such as Carleton University where the double tracking section occurs at a station, but there are other passing areas such as the Brookfield siding where there is no station, but that is the location where vehicle movements allow for a northbound train to pass a southbound train. And so this dance, this coordination that happens between the vehicles as they move up and down the line, that's controlled through our signaling system, which provides signaling similar to the signaling system that you would have in a traffic system. We have permissive signals that are green that allow an operator to move forward on the track, or they have a non-permissive signal indicating that they should wait. So on top of that, the signaling system also provides direction to the operator as to how long they need to wait at the stations, and also gives them a speed target as they're moving through the system. So the fact that we have a single track with passing tracks that's part of the infrastructure, like the track work, but it's very much integrated into the signaling system, so that the whole system, the rail system, working as an integrated system, can work very efficiently.
So, and I'll latch this on as still question number 1. So a train traveling from Bayview to Lineback, how many switches would it pass through in that journey from single to double and back to single?
That's a good question. I would have to get back to you on exactly the number of switches that exist throughout the line. We certainly have that number. I just don't have it at my fingertips.
Okay. So a second question then. One of the recommendations of the inquiry was that the city not nitpick at the builder with a little trivial problems and demand they be fixed. And I'm just wondering if you are, you must have a list of some of the smaller things that aren't actually affecting the reliability rating, but are on your to-do list, I guess. And can you give us an idea of what might be on that list?
Yeah, so we've certainly listened to the recommendations from the public inquiry, and we've followed all the recommendations, and we've made sure that they're implemented as part of the delivery of the Trillium Line project and the east-west extension lines. The issue in relation to not inundating the maintainer is related to the work of our field observation team. So the field observation team is a small group of people who travel along the system during trial running, and they act like our passengers. So they are getting on and off the train. They are using elevators. Sometimes during the day, they will use emergency telephones that are on the platform, or they will use the emergency telephones that exist within the elevators. And it may be on those occasions when they're activating those devices that they find an error or find some kind of fault, and they would make a record of that, and then that would be brought forward to the deficiency list and will be added to the outstanding deficiency list that needs to be completed for substantial completion. So we are making records to ensure that that work will be completed before substantial completion, but that's a kind of station side system, communication system that doesn't impact our on-time performance. And so it's not impacting our trial running daily performance targets.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Blair. And next we'll move on to Shane Segay at Railfans. I think Shane's stepped off. Okay, so this concludes our media availability today. Ceci conclut le point de presse aujourd'hui. Merci. Thank you, everyone.